When it comes to mastering small talk, I want to share with you guys an easy concept that you could just inject right now into your conversation structure to make your interactions a lot more engaging, have more effective communication with the girl that you're talking to, but also just take all the guesswork out of it. Because I struggled with conversations for a very long time. Like I've spent over 10 years studying this stuff. And right now I'm 4 days into a week-long live event that I'm running in Miami. And day after day after day, I've been listening into a lot of guys' conversations. We've been going out, approaching women, getting into a bunch of interactions. And there's this repeated mistake that I'm seeing going on and on and on in a bunch of different guys' conversations. So I want to share with you guys this technique. And then towards the end of this video, I'll show you how to make it a little bit more advanced. There's a simple concept that could just get you in a more engaging conversation right now. But towards the tail end, once you understand that concept, I want to show you how to make it actually really advanced and how you could even demonstrate higher value in that conversation. So the first thing I want to share with you guys is, because I've made thousands of approaches myself and I've broken down hundreds of different conversations with clients. And the first thing I want you guys to understand about this is that conversation is actually very predictable. I know we overcomplicate it and it seems like there's like all of these different nuances to having a conversation, which to some extent is true, but also on a more simplistic level, understand that if you go up and you talk to 10 different people, about 70 to 80% of that conversation will be the same exact topics being brought up. Like small talk and day-to-day conversation is extremely repetitive. Extremely repetitive. It's the same topics being talked about over and over and over again. Now, each individual has a different experience and a different mood going on for the day with a different vibe and a different energy. And so, yes, there are a lot of different variables and a little bit of randomness in the conversation. But if you just go up and talk to 10 different girls, I promise you, almost 100% of the time, it's going to be, what do you do for fun? How old are you? Where do you live? Do you live here? Did you move here? Where'd you move from? What do you do for work? What's your horoscope sign? What's your ethnicity? It's the same questions over and over again. How's your day going? Right? What's your name? Now, obviously, there's other topics that do get thrown into it as you go deeper in, but I'm saying this because if you can just predict that 80% of the conversation is going to be these topics, that actually takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. But more importantly, all that really means is if we just had a couple easy answers to these questions that we had rehearsed in the back of our brain, or maybe we even had like a little bit of a story for some of these things, we could use those stories over and over and over and over again. And it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, but now also it frees up so much of your mental bandwidth in the interaction because you already know what you're gonna say. And that's actually what I did earlier on in my journey. Is like, at first I was so in my head when I would go up and I would approach a girl that I'd be panicking. I would be like, what's the next question I'm gonna ask her? Where am I gonna take this conversation? And I would just kind of be so in my head that I would just keep running out of things to say because I was so nervous. Now, as I got better and better and better at doing this, I really just got desensitized to the situation and built up situational confidence. But really what happened was, after I calmed down and I went through the interactions over and over and over again, I started to see patterns. I didn't really study the concept I'm talking about in this video. I learned the hard way, but after seeing the patterns over and over and over again, I slowly developed more flavorful answers to a lot of these topics. I would say, I would go up and have a conversation with 10 different girls, and like one or two of them would go kind of well. And then I would think about what was said in those ones that was different. And really, the girl just was responding positively, and I felt more comfortable in the interaction. And so I was able to stay relaxed and give a lengthy answer. Now, as you get better at this, really what you want to do is you just need 2 or 3 flavorful stories that you could tell. And when I first moved to Miami and I went out 100 days in a row, what I realized is in every interaction, the girls would ask me, where did you move from? Right? Because I found myself constantly bringing up how I was really enjoying the warm weather, especially now that even though it was winter time, right? And that implies I'm not used to it. Like the way that I would talk about the warm weather in the winter, it implied that I'm not from here or I recently moved here. And so almost every interaction, it would get brought up, where did you move from, right? And this is what I'm telling you guys, you need to have flavorful answers because initially I was just saying New Jersey, what about you? And then I would think back on my conversations, like how can I have made that better? And I was like, oh, well, I could actually just tell a story for this very predictable question that is continuously getting asked. So instead of just saying New Jersey, I actually changed it. I deliberately wrote this out. I said, you know what, it's actually pretty funny because my business was recently expanding over the last 6 months. And so I just found myself at the dog park in January, freezing my ass off in New Jersey. And I was like, why am I even here? I'm at a point in my business where I have the financial freedom to get out of Jersey. And I've spent 34 years of my life here. And I was like, you know what? Like, I want to relocate somewhere warm. My team wants to go to Miami. I've been here on vacation a bunch of times. It was always great. I was like, why don't I just move the team and the company down to Florida for the year and at least try it out? And honestly, I've been here for 2 months and it's the best decision I've ever made. Where are you from? All right. So listen to that answer. That is so much more engaging of an answer because of the fact that I've revealed all of these different subtle details in the story. And now the listener, they have a lot more to respond to. They could be like, oh, you have an online business? Or, oh, what do you do for work? Oh, okay, that's great. I've actually never been to New Jersey. Wow, it's snowing over there right now? Wait, you have a team? You have employees? Right? Like there was a lot that was brought up in that conversation. And also some of those things, and I'll get to this later on in the video too, but a lot of those things were like low-key kind of a flex. And yes, that was done subtly, but it was also done intentionally. So when you think about this for yourself, people are going to ask you, what do you do for work? Right? Now, I could just say, actually, my old answer used to be I'm a private investigator, because that's what I was. I was a surveillance field investigator. And I was able to say that answer because that would always bring more questions. But if you have a boring profession, don't just say, I do IT, or I'm a software engineer. Like nobody is gonna have any curiosity about that position. Or if they ask you what's your ethnicity, right? You could just say the boring answer. I'm Polish or I'm Italian, right? If a girl asks me what ethnicity I am, I have a whole story because I'm 75% Italian and I'm 25% Armenian. And so I could just say I'm actually Italian and Armenian. That would be the boring short answer. Or I could say, my mom's parents, they actually came to USA on a boat from Italy. So I'm mainly Italian. Like my mom's side is from this small village, Abruzzo. It's like, I'm pretty sure it's north of Italy. And honestly, I've never been out there, even though I've been like dying to go. But I'm mainly Italian. And then my dad's side, which is actually my last name, it's Frungian. It's right here. Actually, I got this tattoo from my dad. He passed away when I was younger. But he's on the Armenian side, right? So my dad's side has the aggressiveness, and they're a little bit more rowdy. And then my mom's side, right? So I could drag this story out as far as I want to go. I could then go into how my last name is any Armenian last name has a crazy last name, right? And I'll tell them, oh, like Dan Bilzerian, or you probably know like Kim Kardashian. So anytime I see a fellow Armenian, I can always spot it just by looking at their last name, right? And so I could tell this really long story that would open up so many different conversation threads, or I could just give the short answer. And so what I'm telling you guys, the main takeaway from this video is like, what are the boring questions that you get asked every single day in these conversations or on dates or when you're going up and making your approaches with women? But how can you spice up those answers? Because I think that a lot of men think they need to live this extravagant, crazy lifestyle where they've traveled the world and they're a millionaire and they're jumping out of planes and they're, traveling on a yacht, having this, they're on a mega yacht throwing these parties and stuff in order to be a good conversationalist. But the reality is that everybody's had some cool stories in their lifetime. They don't even need to be that cool. Listen to my stories. They're not that cool. I'm just talking. And when you can carry a conversation with a good vibe, a good level of enthusiasm, that's really what it is. And so stop giving one-word answers and think about how can you make your conversations a little bit more flavorful. Now, the more advanced topic I want to talk about in this video is ideally in your stories, you're also embedding DHVs, demonstrations of higher value. So any indication of having attractive women in your life, having women in your life that are attracted to you, having other men that look up to you, being a leader of men, being a man who is financially successful, who has any kind of flex. You can subtly mention these things in your story. You don't want to say, oh, I'm glad you asked. I'm actually a doctor. What do you think about that? Yeah, I actually drive a Lamborghini. No, no, no. You don't want to ever directly flex in the story. There's subtle incidental details. So where are you from? It's funny because actually my business has been expanding over the last year, and I spent so much time in New Jersey. I found myself in January like, why am I freezing my ass off in the dog park? Right? I have the financial freedom at this point. It's like, I don't even need to be tied down to New Jersey. So I was thinking, I was like, where should I go at this point? Well, fuck. I mean, the team wants to relocate to Miami, and I've been there a bunch of times, mainly with parties. Like last year, I was out there with this group of girls, and my one boy was there, and it was so much fun, honestly. I haven't really like lived in Miami, so I was like, you know what? Let's relocate the company and just give it a year. Like worst case scenario, we could always go back. Right? So listen to all that. It's like I have financial freedom. The company's doing really well. The business has been expanding over the last year. I was out here a year ago partying. There was women. There's a lot of good indicators in that story that imply that I'm a successful dude who has women in his life, who's capable of having a lot of fun, who's just doing well and winning at life. All right. Now, look, if you don't have any of those things, that's fine. If nothing else, on a more simplistic level, just get good at conversation structure. But as you get better and better and better at this stuff, and as you continue to grow as a man, and you have a prestigious job title, or you have something going on in your life where you lead men, or you have women, or you do this fun thing, and you have a cool lifestyle, something you can brag about, inject that into the story. But don't make it the main detail. You make that a small detail at the end of the conversation. And that shit hits hard. When you subtly imply it into the story, it's not bragging, but it's interesting. Women will get drawn into that, right? Because they hear all the guys that flex about the boat and the Lambo and the bullshit. They want a real guy who they can actually connect with, who's not trying to fucking brag, all right? And that's how you can embed DHV spikes, demonstrations of higher value, spikes or bursts into your story to create a really powerful result. But on a more simplistic level, guys, just have some flavorful answers to the very predictable questions. And lastly, once you have those answers, ask those questions in conversation. Because the moment I ask the question, they will answer the question. But most likely what's going to happen is they're going to be like, oh, but what about you? And even if they don't say, what about you? Just the fact that they answered where they're from, it's an easy segue for me to now talk about where I'm from. Right? So if I said, oh, where are you from? She said, oh, I'm from Rhode Island. It's very easy for me to just talk about where I'm from now. So have your answers prepared. If you're on a more advanced level, inject subtle demonstrations of higher value in your stories. And then when you're in a conversation, now you can relax and rest assured because you already know the answers to the test. And now you just want to provoke those questions. All right. If you want to get better with your own social confidence, your dating life, you want to get dating abundance and work with me directly, click the links down below. Check out the brand new coaching programs I got for 2025. You can work with me one-on-one. And we also have the school community group down below as well. The links are in the description. That's all for this video, guys. Peace out.